welcome to Patilapi's workshop. My name is Jim Gary, and this is the next video installment of my series in replacing the rear drum brakes and rear wheel bearings of my P32 Workhorse based motorhome. In this video, I removed the rear hubs from the brake drums, and then I removed the wheel bearings from the hub and then replace them with new wheel bearings. So I go through that entire process. And you can see the description below for links to other previous videos in this series that show how I progressed, taking apart the whole brakes and the rear suspension, putting everything back together again. And just as a disclaimer, I'm not a professional mechanic. I'm a biologist. And I'm just showing you what I did. If you have any uncertainties about your project, you should consult a professional mechanic. So please enjoy the video and subscribe. As you recall, I had to cut the drum in half all the way around the circumference to get it off. I couldn't get it off any other way. But as you'll see inside, bearings are in there and all that. And I'll get to those later. But right now I just want to get the hub off. Basically, I'm going to just put it down like this. Put a nut. Protect the threads. There it goes. The nut off. So there's no washer or anything, it's just pounded in there. So I'll go ahead and get the other ones done. I don't think I need to do it all on camera. So I'm at the last one. Nut screwed down. That's all there is to it. And this should just come off. And there it is. So, save all the studs. And this now goes to the recycler. So I'm going to clean off the bench before I start messing up with the bearings. Okay, so to clean off my bench, I usually just brush it off. And I use a lot of paper towels, but when I'm doing something really greasy, it's easier to use a shop rag. And actually, these shop cloths, I just take them in the house and run them through the washing machine and dryer periodically. And it does a really good job. It doesn't leave any residue in the washer, so my wife doesn't mind. And I usually spray the bench down with a little WD-40 for a nice clean surface to work on. Hub here. So what I'm seeing is there's a seal here, there's a bearing there. That's the outside, inside. And then here, let's take this tape off. I did this when we were working outside. So this is the outer bearing, and it's stuck in there. So it has to come out the other side, I suppose. So let's take this out. To get the seal out, I ended up using my biggest pry bar, and I had to put the hub in a vise. And it took me a while. I'm just showing you clips of this, and you can see I'm mangling the seal, but that's okay because it's going to be replaced, so we don't have to worry about that. And I just kept tightening the vise and whacking away at the seal until finally it popped right out. And there it is, pretty mangled up, but again, it's going to be replaced, so no biggie. Now, here's the hub, and now I can just pull the inner bearing. So the next thing to do is to try to there's a snap ring in there, and is right here. Snap ring starts here and goes all the way around. And again, it's just got holes. It doesn't have holes in it like a regular snap ring. It's got grooves where the snap ring or pliers can go. So, and I had to tap with this. I tapped around the edge of, I think it's a race below it, just take the pressure off the snap ring, because when I tried to take the snap ring out, it wouldn't move at all. But with this, it does. So put this in here. Ah, there it goes. Hopefully we caught that on tape. There we go. Boy, that's one heck of a snap ring, huh? You can see the shape of it now. I think I have to tap that race out from the other side to get it past where the snap ring was. So I'm going to take this out and set it up over on the bench. So it's kind of funny. Years ago, I bought a U.S. General bearing and seal removal or insertion, whatever, kit, and never used it. I've had it for probably 15 years. Now's the time. So I've got that in there. You just punch it through. Ouch, that hurt. She's out. It wasn't easy. Well, that was easy. And there it is, the race and the bearing. Now working on getting the inner rear bearing race. As you look down here, there's a rim right around here. And I just have to punch that out evenly to get it out. And I'm using an aluminum bar just so I don't damage anything. Put it up, it's bottoming out, still not coming out, so I got to put something around it. Okay. Oop, that was it. I just barely touched it. Okay. So here's the race. It's got the Timken number, which I'll have to look at. Oh, it looks like 3824 for that. So good. I'm going to go now look all these up and order all new bearings. I've decided to go for new bearings. So I've cleaned up the hub pretty well. And remember, the outside of it is in the back, and the inside of it is here in the front. And the bearings and everything go in the outermost ones first, because they can only go in this way. So the first part that I had to order was the tapered roller bearing set, and this is set 38 from Timken, and that seems to be the right one. It looks exactly like it should. Matches when I put them up to each other, so I'm pretty sure of that one. So we've got that bearing. Put this one away. I've got the snap ring that holds the bearing, that bearing back in there, and if you look inside here, you can see a groove here. And that groove is where this snap ring eventually goes. And it's a little awkward, but I found out I can just use a pair of pliers to squeeze it in to get it in and out. So that'll work. Inner bearing has two parts. Of course, there's the race and there's the bearing itself. And it turns out the race is part number 382A from Timken. So it's Timken. And that's the correct one. So there's the race. I'm going to leave it in the package for now. And then the actual bearing, and I had trouble getting this. I ordered the wrong one the first time. But the actual inner bearing is a tapered roller bearing made by Timken 387AS. And all these sets cost, about 20 bucks a piece on average. So here's that bearing. So that'll go in that race. So I can put this aside because that's the old one we're not going to need. And then lastly, I have here's the old oil seal. And I ordered a new oil seal, and it's from National Oil Seal part number 2081. And that is exactly the same as the one I took out, but in better condition, obviously. So I'll have that around for later. The outer bearing is going to go right in here, and it'll have to get tapped in to a spot in there, and I'll do that in a minute. I'm going to use bearing and seal drivers that I've got. And the biggest one that I have is 81 millimeters, and that looks like it's exactly the right size. That should fit right in there. So the taper has to be the wide part out because the bearing's got to go in from the wide part. I'm probably going to put this up right. So here's the race. It's going to drop all the way down in there. So I'm going to put a little slideway oil on it to make sure it goes in well. So the wider side of the taper goes up. So here's that little bit of oil, and that'll go down in there. And then this is the bearing and seal driver I'm going to use. So here's the going in very nicely. Let's flip it over and take a look. I'll flip it this way. So you can see it's all the way seated. So the next thing to do is to drop the bearing in. Now these bearings on the rear are actually lubricated by the differential oil, but I'm going to put just a little bit of high temperature grease on them just so when they first start up there'll be a little bit of lubrication. So I've got this heavy duty grease. It's made for high temperature bearings. So I'm just going to put a little bit of that on the bearing here. And I know you shouldn't, grease is not the best thing to put on something that's going to have oil on it, but I just want to put a little bit there just so it's not dry when it goes in. Okay, so now they go in. And then the next step is going to be getting the snap ring in there. And there's a groove, and that prevents the bearing from coming up out. So let's see if we can get that in there. This isn't going to be too easy, but it shouldn't be too hard either. Let's just see what we can do. So push it together, get it in there. That's not all the way down. What they call the bearing cup all the way down, but as you can see here, well, you probably can't see, but it's tapered. And once you get the retaining ring in, then you're supposed to drive this back up against the retaining ring. So I'm going to try tapping it down just a little bit more with this tool, but I really don't think that's the issue. But let's see. The fun thing about this, that was it. That was the problem. She's in. Bearings turn. So I'm going to flip her over and I'm going to tap. And I really don't want to use this because I don't want to hit the bearing and I can't take the bearing out. So I think that's what these holes are for. There's 4 holes here. I think that's so you can drive what they call the bearing cup back. Let's take a look. I don't think I did anything. It doesn't look to me like I've moved it at all. I can tell when it's up against it because the ring won't move. I found that to be a problem. So it's not quite up against it, but it's getting close. So I'm going to tap it a little bit more. Once I get it to the point where I can't move that ring, the retaining snap ring, that's it. That snap ring is not going to move. So there we are. So the next step is going to be to put in the outer bearings. I'm working now on getting the race, or the cup as the manual calls it, to set in here. And I don't have a driver big enough to put all the way across, so I'm going to use the old race. I've always called these races, the manual I have, the official Workhorse manual calls them cups, but it's all the same thing. So here it goes. It just goes in there, and it's got to just be press fit inside there. So I've got the old one here. I'm going to take that, and I'm just going to see if I can't tap it back and forth, making sure it's staying even. It seems to be. And the manual says to take it down till it bottoms out. We're almost there, but what I don't want to do is get this thing stuck in there either. I'll continue to tap it down so it's about flush with the... And now it's starting to catch, so now I don't want to get it stuck. I still have about 1/8 of an inch, 3/16 of an inch to go. So I'm going to put this aluminum rod just on the edge of it and try to just tap it down a little bit at a time. So I get it down without hurting the race. I'd say that's about right. Just take a couple extra tippy taps. That definitely feels solid. That feels solid. That feels solid. Okay, so I think it's in there. Let's just checking the edge. So now the bearing, again, I'm just going to put the tiniest little bit of wheel bearing grease on it, just so that it doesn't go in there dry. This is my new bearing. Fits on there. And the last step is to put the new oil seal in. So this side goes down, this side goes up. A little bit of oil on it. Sure it goes in well. Just a little bit of, this is just whey oil from my, goes in this way. I think that's about right. So that one's done. So the next step is going to be to put it on brake drum. Well, that about wraps up this video. And I just wanted to let you know that the upcoming video will be the last in this series. And in that video, I'll be reconnecting the hubs to the rear wheel drums, along with the half axles, install everything back together again onto the chassis to complete the rear suspension, brakes, and bearings project for this vehicle. And I'm very happy to be done. It's been very rewarding. So look in the description below again for other videos that might be related to this. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching.